In Gen 2, Magneton became an electric steel type Pokemon, which has the potential to take Magneton from being a kind of meh Gen 1 challenger to being one of the top Pokemon in the game, in spite of its fairly low base stats. The problem is, I'm just a Gen 1 runner. I have no idea how to actually use the steel typing in battle. I don't even know what its type effectivenesses are, so I decided to call in a true expert. Ladies and gentlemen, I give to you GSC Pokemon Challenges. That's right, thank you Teo from RBY Pokemon Challenges. It's nice to see a channel with 15,000 subscribers finally have a decent PokeTuber running it. Today, GSC Pokemon Challenges is going to show you just how good this steel electric Magneton could have been in the original generation. And it all starts out with the type effectiveness when we're dealing with steel type. Of course, steel has tons of resistances. It's completely immune to poison, and in Gen 2, it was actually resistant to basically everything, including the ghost type. So only fire, ground, and fighting type Pokemon are actually going to give us any trouble in this one. But trust me, I've got a little ace up my sleeve when we get to that point, because we are coming from Johto here, and we're going to show this Magneton at its maximum abilities. Now, of course, one thing that I actually do like as a Gen 2 player coming back to Gen 1 is the fact that the special stat is all one stat here. We have a 120 base special to go together with a nice 95 base defense. The speed, attack, and HP aren't that great, but in this one, we're doing a normal full game solo challenge, so I think we might get enough levels to simply overcome those weaker stats. We'll just have to see though, so let's get into it. So as we step outside of Pallet Town, Professor Oak's gonna welcome us here from Johto with this Magneton, and we're about to see how it does in a full game solo challenge. Now, of course, our rival, RBY Poo, is already waiting here for us, whereas we, the GSC King, are going to completely destroy him in this one. I'm absolutely certain of it. If we ever lose to the rival, even once in this challenge, I'm gonna have to apologize to RBY Pokemon Challenges, and who wants that? Come on. So now Professor Oak, who's like half as cool as Professor Elm, finally gives us our Pokemon, and we have the legendary Steel Mag, a Magneton coming in with the electric steel typing in Gen 1. But not only that, I've added a little extra something from Gen 2. We're going to give it Hidden Power Steel. This is going to be a 70 base power version of the Hidden Power, allowing us to have something that is actually usable against the rock ground Pokemon that we're going to encounter throughout this run, and that gives us two same type moves. Obviously, Hidden Power Steel would be possible in Generation 2. Since we wandered over from Johto anyway, we may as well do this one properly. With that, let's get into the Rival 1 fight, where he's going to lead off with his Eevee, and we can just tackle here. We don't need to do anything because he can't actually do any damage to our steel type Pokemon, so I'm just going to stunt on him. Look at that critical hit do 2 damage. We easily defeat our rival. Of course, he's RBY Pokemon Challenges, so he never stood a chance in this one. But with that, we're ready to get out into the world, and obviously with Sonic Boom and Hidden Power Steel, we're going to completely destroy Brock. But the real question is, how do we do in the late game? If you saw that Ultra Minimum Battles run that RBY Pokemon Challenges attempted a couple weeks ago, he was sitting here doing this whole thing where he was using Mimic and Toxic and Substitute and Rest strats to even be able to get through the game. But here we might actually be able to get through Giovanni and Blaine in spite of the fact that they have super effective moves, as long as they just give us a small opening. That's all we're actually going to need. And this is Gen 1. Like, the AI is so much worse in this generation than Gen 2 that I think we're going to be able to find a victory even without going for those OP broken TMs. But we'll just have to see. But honestly, we should have no issues in the early game at least, so I'm going to run on minimum battles at this point, and let's just see how we actually do. Starting with a little test of Hidden Power Steel here against this Caterpie, it's effectively a 105 base power move in the hands of this Magnemite. It still takes 4 hits here though, because we don't have a great physical attack stat. Thundershock or Sonic Boom are going to be your better plays there. But with that, we are ready to come into the Brock fight, and I'm going to have to get used to this whole gym leader intro thing, something we don't do over on GSC Pokemon Challenges. So just wait for a couple seconds while we get into this one. So Brock attempt number 1, we're going to come in here, and obviously the best play is just to go Sonic Boom. It's guaranteed to do 20 damage here, but Hidden Power Steel also pulls its weight, allowing us to just 2-shot there against the Geodude. Out next, we have this Onix. It goes Bind because we are slower here, but it's not doing that much damage because of our Steel typing. We're only taking 1 damage per hit. When he finally does Bide, we're just going to use 2 Sonic Booms to knock him out. We get through Brock on the first attempt, 5 minutes 54 seconds, because obviously I'm not a Gen 1 player. I'm not used to the early game here, but Brock was really no issue whatsoever. And with that, we're ready to move on towards the Misty gym, where she's going to be like the only gym until we get to Blaine that actually at least deals neutral effective damage to us. Everything else is going to be resisted through most of this run, which is kind of insane. And it's going to be very interesting to see just how much the Steel typing completely breaks the Gen 1 AI, especially on those smart trainers. For now though, we have nothing to worry about in this entire section because we are completely immune to poison and we resist all the normal type moves. So we just really have no challenge until we get through to the second gym. Let's just jump straight ahead to where we pick up our fossil. So as we make to the super nerd at the end of Mount Moon, he's just got a couple poison types and an electric type. So I'm just going to use Hidden Power Steel to 3-shot the Grimer. Voltorb comes out and really is just another joke here, though Steel is resisted, so I guess Sonic Boom is the way to go on this one. It's a 3-hit KO after I used 1 Hidden Power Steel. We get to level 13 as the final coughing comes out, and it's trying to use Smog. Oh, what a legend. We easily defeat that super nerd. He clearly wasn't nerdy enough to check in on Gen 2. And with that, we're going to pick up the Helix fossil because I've come from the future and I know that the Helix fossil is the proper fossil to get. And never mind that Phantom Pikachu that popped up there for a second. That's just because this ROM hack was made by RBY Pokemon Challenges and he's clearly just not very good at making ROM hacks. But with that, we're ready to take on Jesse and James, where yet again, they're rocking the poison and normal typing. So I think we just go Hidden Power Steel here on the first Ekans, get a nice 2-hit KO right there. Meowth comes out next and tries to scratch a magnet. Good job. We get a nice 2-hit KO on that one as well. That brings out the coughing where we can really do anything. I guess Thundershock's probably the better play. We still get a 3-hit KO either way on that one, and we get to level 15. So easy victory right there, and we can move on in the game, where I think we go straight to rival number 2, because honestly, what is he gonna do against us? We 4 times resist his flying type moves, and we're resistant to all the normal type moves, and he doesn't have any other types of moves in this version of the game. Like if this was Pokemon Red and Blue and we were up against a Charmander, maybe we would have some troubles, but here I think this is just a cakewalk. Of course, the rival is gonna lead off with Spearow, and we're just gonna Thundershock this Pokemon. It's gonna take 2 hits, but then he goes Fury Attack. Good job. We easily knock him out on the first attempt there. Now against this Sandshrew, it's gonna be a 3-hitter with Sonic Boom, so let's just see what Hidden Power Steel does. This also looks to be about a 3-hit KO, so we get through just fine. Obviously, the Hidden Power Steel is just more accurate. We then get Rattata down in 2 hits as we get to level 16. We can now go up against the Eevee. It's growling because it knows we're just far too powerful, and we'll even Sonic Boom it down. So the rival was an absolute joke. No problem, as we easily get through that section. And with that, the rest of the Nugget Bridge shouldn't really be too much trouble. The only Pokemon I think might be hard is going to be that Mankey, but honestly, that's probably not going to be a major issue since these trainers don't have smart AI. Now, we do get hit by Low Kick here and flinched, which did massive damage, but then a critical hit Thundershock just completely destroyed the Mankey, so we do get a move on without any resets through this section, I think. And of course, we had to get a Gen 1 miss here, something that I'm completely unaccustomed to. Like, aren't 100% accurate moves supposed to hit 100% of the time? Clearly, this generation is the worst generation of Pokemon, and if you want accuracy to work properly, you gotta come over and watch GSC Pokemon Challenges so that we can put these Pokemon through their actual paces. But with that, we have successfully made it to Bill's house as our Phantom Pikachu goes to check him out. He's gonna go into the closet. He's gotta teleport himself to Johto to check in on this whole Steel-type Magneton thing going on here. It's like, I never knew about that back in Gen 1. He's so excited. He's gonna give us the SS ticket, and we're going to go ahead and get on our way. But with that, I think we've reached a point where we can reasonably go ahead and take on Misty. She's going to use her water type moves against us exclusively because she does have smart AI and she knows that normal is resisted. Turns out that Misty actually knows something that Billy Boy doesn't. Still, we have to see if this is actually going to be a challenge or not, but let's get into the Misty fight and find out. So Misty attempt number 1, we're going to go for Thunder Shock on the Staryu. It is faster, but we get a nice one-hit KO as we get to level 21. That brings out the Starmie. It goes Water Gun and did decent damage. Bubble Beam did a lot more with the crit, but then we returned the crit right back, getting us the victory on the first attempt. Oh, Misty, she tried to go for the critical hit. Jeez. But even though we're a much slower Pokemon with a much lower crit rate, this is Gen 1, of course, so we get a lot more crits than we normally would. 16 minutes, 13 seconds to beat Misty, but that's not the headline. It's the fact that we are completely without resets to this point in the game, and in fact, most opponents aren't even doing decent damage to us at this point, so we can move on. And with that, we're ready to move on south and take on Lieutenant Surge and Rival 3, neither of which I think are going to pose any trouble for our Steel-type Magneton here. But first, we do have to take on this innocent bystander. Now, initially, when I came into this fight, I got a little nervous as a Gen 2 player because this is a Machop, and then I remembered that this is Gen 1 and Karate Chop's a normal type move. So we can simply use a couple of Thunder Shocks and completely destroy that one. Drowsy comes out next. Let's go for the Hidden Power Steel. We get an easy 2-hit KO, and what was it going to do? Use Pound or Confusion on us? Seriously, easy victory. But now we've made it to rival number 3, and let's see if we can get the victory nice and easy on this one. He leads off with the Spearow, which we one-shot with a Thunder Shock. That brings out the Rattata. Thunder Shock's still probably the strongest move against this Pokemon, given that it has really low special versus our really high special, so we'll just go ahead and go for that. Now we've got this Sandshrew, where I'm gonna go for the Hidden Power Steel. It's a 3-hit KO. We just didn't get the range and we got Sand attacked, but we still managed to get through, which means now we've got the Eevee, but it's dropping more Sand attacks on us. And this is the reason everybody hates Gen 1, because the second you get Sand attacked once, it basically means that your accuracy drops to not 0.4%, and you're going to be here for a small eternity trying to win the battle. That being said, we at least have the advantage that we resist everything Eevee can do, so we still knock it out even after it spams tons of accuracy on us, and the Growl and Tail Whip, it just wasn't enough from the rival, so we win. With that, we're ready to move on to Lieutenant Surge, who's only rocking Thunderbolt, Mega Punch, Mega Kick, and Growl in this version with his single Raichu. I think we're going to completely destroy him, but let's just see how it actually works out. So Lieutenant Surge number 1, let's just check in on the Gen 1 version of the Trash Man. So Lieutenant Surge leads off with his Raichu, and I'm just going to go straight for the Sonic Boom. It looks like it's going to be a 4-hit KO here. He hits a Mega Kick that actually did pretty decent damage. Same for that Thunderbolt. Wait just a minute. He actually knocks us out on the first attempt. Are you kidding me? That was ridiculous. We resist everything. How? We're going to have to come back and try this one again, where, yet again, that Mega Kick is just hitting hard. He goes X speed this time, though, and then goes another Mega Kick, and then for the Thunderbolt, and that allows us to get the victory on the second attempt as we get to level 24. But man, oh man, as a Gen 2 player, I'm used to coming and seeing him just after I've beaten the Elite Four, where he's a complete joke. But it turns out that Raichu, kinda legit. Even when you resist all of its moves, it does some pretty serious damage at this point. So we get through Lieutenant Surge, but it took 21 minutes, 10 seconds, and 1 reset. And apparently Lieutenant Surge is mad at me not putting enough respect on RBY's name, but still we do manage to get through, and we get access to one of our strongest TM moves in Thunderbolt, something that you couldn't get till the post game in Gen 2, but I'm just going to slap it on immediately. Like, yes, I know we're docking our score a little bit with a TM move here, but it's obviously the best play to progress in the game. But with with that, we are ready to make our way to the rock tunnel, and I think the hidden power steel plus our resistance to rock type and normal type will actually make this section pretty darn easy, but let's just see how it goes. But we actually run into an issue with this first Pokemaniac that has the Cubone, because this Pokemon's a 3-hit KO and it just 2-shot me with Bone Club. I'm not sure if this trainer has smart AI though, so it might not be a case where they're actually going to use that move all the time. We're just going to have to get back there and see, because I didn't bother saving before that fight. I didn't think I needed to. Clearly, there's a reason why RBY saves between every single battle. This time we actually get a miss from Bone Club, allowing us to win on the second attempt, and then we can just Thunderbolt the Slowpoke. So we do manage to get through there. It just wasn't easy, and it does seem like that Pokemaniac has smart AI, so we're probably in a situation where we would normally get wrecked right there. That's our first taste of ground type and that 4x weakness. That could actually turn out to be a major problem in this one. Fortunately, the rival's Sandslash will not have Earthquake until the very end of the game, and I think by the time we get to Giovanni, we're going to have some tools to deal with him, but we'll just have to see how it actually works out. For now though, let's fight the Rock Tunnel Hiker. He's going to come out with his self-destructing Geodudes, and we're just going to show him Hidden Power Steel, which does not quite one-hit KO. Takes 2 hits on the first Geodude and the second one, but he just went Tackle there. That's perfectly fine. Finally, Graveler tries to go Rock Throw. Oh, this guy, he clearly was outmuscled by our Steel type. And with that, we're able to get through the Rock Tunnel, and we're going to go straight to Erica, because honestly, what do we have to fear from her? We resist all of her Grass and Poison type moves, so honestly, this should be a pretty easy gym to get through, but who knows? Maybe she shows us something unexpected. So Erica attempt number 1, she leads off with the Tangela, of course. Let's just see what we do with our different moves. Obviously, we resist Mega Drain, but we didn't do that much with our Thunderbolt. Hidden Power Steel also isn't doing great, so I think we go for Sonic Boom here. We do get bound by this Tangela, but once we manage to get through it, we get to level 28 as the Weepinbell comes out. And let's just see, Weepinbell would be a 5-hit KO with our Sonic Boom, but it just tried to go for Acid here, which doesn't affect us. And then Stun Spore also misses. She Super Potions after that, and we do finally get Stun Spored here. And that guaranteed critical hit from Razor Leaf is kind of scary, but that does get us through to the Gloom. It tries to drop Acid as well before going Petal Dance, but we were fully paralyzed 2 turns in a row, so we lose. Still, this does look like a winnable fight at least. I'm going to try it just a couple more times. So first up, we kind of know that we need to go Sonic Boom on this Tangela to do decent damage, because we're not going to do much with anything else. She does Super Potion though, so we kind of need to keep her out of that Super Potion range. We knock it out, but we're all the way down to half health on this one. And here we can see that if Weepinbell does go for decent moves, we can get wrecked here because of that basically guaranteed critical hit from Razor Leaf. And the problem is we don't really have a whole lot of stronger moves to use at this point, so I think we actually have to give up on Erica in spite of our resistance here and maybe go through the Rocket Hideout first. So that's actually kind of disappointing. I expected to just be able to go straight into Erica's gym and destroy her, but instead we actually have to come and take more battles to make that one reasonable. Fortunately, we shouldn't have any issues with Team Rocket here, so let's get straight to Jesse and James in the basement. Now, this is worth noting that since I've taken over for RBY Pokemon Challenges, he did set this one to be on 0 DVs, so we're trying to beat the game with the weakest possible Magneton, but even still, that's just kind of a surprising result to get to at this point. But we've made it to Jesse and James, so let's just see if we can get the extra levels, and maybe it makes Erica consistent. So here, first up, we've got the Coughing from Jesse and James. We just one-shot it with a Thunderbolt. Let's stick with more of the same on the Meowth as it growls. Good job. And these Ekans never had a chance. And with that, we've finally made it to Giovanni, where I think the Hidden Power Steel is going to destroy him, but let's just see. Giovanni leads off with his Onix. We go Hidden Power Steel and do about half as he just guard specs. So he gets knocked out in 2 hits. we get a level up and learn Supersonic. I'm actually going to learn this over Tackle. I think Sonic Boom still has some value here. Now against the Rhyhorn, let's go for the Hidden Power Steel and get a critical hit one-shot. Very nice. Now Persian goes Screech, we go Thunderbolt, and it screeches again, just allowing us to get through with basically no damage. That was a super easy fight. And Giovanni just runs away because he knows he's got to go game plan for the next time he sees this Magneton. In the meantime, we're going to come here and fight against rival number 4. And this one should still be really easy because he's still just running the Eevee, but let's see how it goes. So rival number 4, attempt 1, we go Thunderbolt on the Fearow. It's an easy one-hitter. We get to level 30 as he brings out his Magnemite. And I'm going to give it the Hidden Power Steel. Not very effective though, because Magnemite, even though it's not showing up there, is a Steel type. Sonic Boom does the job though. Thunderbolt destroys the Shelder. Now we've made it to the Sandshrew, where I'm going to go Hidden Power Steel. This is going to be a 2-hitter. He does Sand Attack, but not too bad. And that brings us now to the Eevee, where we hit the Hidden Power Steel, and we just knock it out in 2 hits. So just like that, we get through the rival, and now we can move on, where we could even go with our Steel type moves against the Ghosts. I mean, Steel can hit Ghosts even if normal cannot. You know, clearly Pokemon logic makes perfect sense. And here we're even just one-shotting against these Ghastlies because we've got a nice, strong, physical, same type move. So we're ready to just move on straight up to the top, where honestly, Ghosty Mama might be the scariest thing in this entire section. And we have made it to the Ghost Marowak, so let's just see how this actually goes. Of course, she has 79 HP, so she would be a 4-hit KO with the Sonic Boom, but we just get one shot by a Bone Club here. Oh, this is scary. This makes me really nervous for the late game. Still, I think the best play is to go for the Supersonic. We get Tail Whip this time because this Pokemon does not have Smart AI. It hits itself in confusion a couple times and then hits the Bone Club, so we go down yet again. Let's see if the third time is the charm. We did get Headbutt once here. Headbutt again. We're perfectly fine with that. And Leer allows us to get the victory finally, but that was not as easy as I would expect to be given our level. The ground typing is kind of OP against this Magneton. Still, we do get to Justine James on minimum battles. We'll go Thunderbolt on the Meowth, easy victory. Arbok can also get Thunderbolt, and it's not like its poison type moves can do anything here. And that brings out Weezing, which also just gets one shot by a crit. So easy victory there as we level up now to level 32. I think it's time to go back and try Erica again at this level, because who knows, we may be able to beat her at this point. My basic game plan is to go Erica, then Koga, then come back to fight against rival 5 and hopefully take him down and get to Sabrina. We're going to try to do all of that before we even think about Blaine in this one, because that could be a nightmare. And I think we need badge boosts and as many levels as possible for that one. For now, though, I'm going to come back to Erica. Let's see how she goes. So now against Erica's Tangela, we can go Hidden Power Steel. We get a nice critical hit turn 1. I think we might want to confuse this Pokemon just to be safe. We can get it to hit itself in confusion and then just kind of see what the rest of our moves do here. With it on fairly low health, we can even Sonic Boom to take it down. And now we're getting through with like 56 HP remaining. Weepinbell still does pretty decent damage with that critical hit Razor Leaf, but once we get it confused, we can now just go into Hidden Power Steel. We're on about half health as we get to level 33 and go to the Gloom. I'm going to confuse this one as well just in case, and then go Hidden Power Steel. She hits herself again, and that gives us the victory. So after going through the Rocket Hideout and Rival 4, we didn't really have too much issue here. 40 minutes, 30 seconds to get through. We have added 1 TM and 6 resets in total, including a few on Erica when we came here before. But we're now ready to move on in the game. It's on to Koga, who, in spite of the fact that he is a psychic type trainer effectively in this version, in fact, everything is going to be resisted, so that should give us a pretty good chance of actually getting through this on minimum battles, where our Thunderbolts and Hidden Power Steels are going to do a lot more damage than his moves. Now, I will say it's kind of nice to see a Pokemon just completely stunt on these psychic types and not care at all about what they're using against us. Gen 1 was so incredibly broken with the psychic typing. Honestly, when it comes to solo runs, I think psychic types are better than normal types in this version, and Koga usually just tries to steal that in order to get some victories in Pokemon Yellow, but I think we've got him in this one. Let's find out. So Koga attempt number 1, I'm just going to go for Thunderbolt on this Venonat. We get a critical hit one-shot on the first one. Second Venonat tries to go Psychic, and we just laugh it off and just destroy that Pokemon the next turn. We get to level 35 as the third Venonat comes out and goes X attack. It knows it needs more in order to actually damage us. That brings out the Venomoth. It goes Toxic because apparently RBY didn't program this so that we would be immune to Toxic, but we paralyze it with the Thunderbolts. And here it looks like it's just a 4-hit KO. So even with bad programming from that RBY guy, we were able to completely destroy this gym as we get through in 43 minutes and 50 seconds. Obviously, this could be a lot faster without me doing live commentary and if I knew all the routes through Gen 1, but that's perfectly fine. We managed to get through this with no additional resets or TMs, and we're ready to move on in the game. And of course, if you need to heal your Pokemon from getting poisoned after your rival incorrectly programs the game, you need to come to today's sponsor, the Fuchsia Pokemart. It is a well-known fact that the Fuchsia Pokemart is the best place to buy a full heal when you've been poisoned by Koga. But did you also know that you can get 50% of the value of any items that you sell to them when you come here? Not that that's actually a good deal. I'm just simply saying that, hey, Fuchsia Pokemart. Now, of course, a big stipulation in this one is that Teo said at the end of his last video, which was sponsored, that he would buy a Magneton card if this Magneton gets some redemption. And at this point, it's looking pretty good for this Pokemon to get through on minimum battles, but I'm really nervous when we get to the late game. Obviously, RBY in the last one was playing in Pokemon Red and Blue, which is by far and away the easiest version of the Pokemon games that has ever been made, whereas Pokemon Yellow is at least getting closer to being something like Gen 2, where you'd actually have a challenge with this typing. In fact, I think in that last run that RBY did, the only Pokemon that was using a ground type move was the Doug Trio on Giovanni's team, whereas here we've got a lot more ground types to deal with. But now with that gym done, I'm going to come back up here and I'm going to take on rival number 5. We're going to see how this goes, but he doesn't have any ground type moves. He will have fire type moves with his Flareon, but honestly, we may just be able to sweep through everything before that and at least have decent HP when we get to the last Pokemon. So we've made it to the rivals room. Let's just see how this fight actually goes. He, of course, is going to lead off with his Sand Slash, which doesn't have any good moves here. So he's just sitting here spamming Sand Attack. He goes for Poison Sting. Slash also wasn't very scary. Swift isn't very scary. He just takes an awful lot of turns to actually knock out. It would have been a 6-hit KO with Sonic Boom. We probably got pretty close to that with these moves. Now we get the Cloyster, though. I'm going to go Thunderbolt since it is lower special than defense. And that brings out his Magneton, where I think the only play is to go Sonic Boom over and over again. In fact, we should probably also confuse this one just in case. We're getting on really low health here, though, just because it takes so many turns to knock these Pokemon out. And clearly he got the Magneton from Gen 2 too, so he is running the Hidden Power Steel. This could be a little bit of a problem. And in the next attempt, we get a ton of accuracy drops. So there's really nothing that we can do in this spot other than get wrecked because of the fact that we couldn't hit anything. So I think that the Supersonic is gonna have to be the play to actually get us through this section of the game. So a few attempts later, we do get through the first Sand Slash with really good health. We can still destroy the Cloyster. We confuse the Magneton and it hits itself turn 1. I'm just interested to see how much damage our different moves do here. Thunderbolt is doing pretty decent damage as we also get confused. So clearly that's the play. We get through on green health still as we go to the Kadabra. I go Hidden Power Steel since it's a physical move. A couple confusions did manage to confuse us there though. So this is also not looking great. As we get to the final Flareon, we're going to confuse it. It hits itself turn 1. We go Thunderbolt, but then it lands the Fire Spin and we go down. A few attempts later, we do manage to get back to the Flareon, only to miss with our Supersonic and get destroyed by Ember. So it's pretty clear that this fight currently just isn't going. We're not actually going to be able to win, so we need to do something else here. Either we need to use some rare candies or we have to at least try our hand at Blaine. The one advantage against Blaine is that because this is Pokemon Yellow, he doesn't have Smart AI. So it's not guaranteed he's just going to use Fire-type moves against us. We might be able to find a way through. But if this doesn't work, the only way we can stay on minimum battles will be if we start dropping rare candies. Obviously not ideal to drop rare candies earlier in the run. We'd love to save them for the champion at the end, especially since he leads off with that Sand Slash that's only going to use Earthquake against us. If we don't outspeed there, we're going to be in a lot of trouble. Of course, if Tombstoner actually existed in this generation, we'd have a super easy time defeating everything, but here we're just going to have to try Blaine as we are. So Blaine attempt number 1, he leads off with the Ninetales. I'm just going to go for the Thunderbolt as he tail whips me. I hope he tail whips a bunch of times so that we get a bunch of badge boosts and speed. We do manage to knock out that first Pokemon as we get to level 36 right here. Rapidash misses Fire Spin, then goes for Stomp and Takedown, but even that is enough to take us down at this point. So we're in some pretty bad shape here. I think we have to drop at least one rare candy to avoid the level up in the middle of this fight. So I'm going to use that right here, and let's get back in and see if maybe we can badge boost enough to outspeed and then maybe have a chance in this one. But of course we just get flamethrowered and completely wrecked. Still, when we do get some tail whips, we are at least gaining some speed. Maybe we can get Growl here from the Rapidash. Sure enough, we do. It misses a Fire Spin after that and then growls again. So we're actually pretty fast. We're up to 108 speed, but that's not quite enough for this Arcanine. It goes Reflect, however, which is good for us and gets paralyzed. We're going to confuse it as well. Takedown did a lot of damage. We've got to hope that it stays confused or paralyzed, but it hits the Fire Blast and we lose. We're just not quite getting what we need here. We might need to drop more rare candies to get this one to work. Now, one thing that I am going to do is just go ahead and learn the move Thunder Wave over Sonic Boom at this point, because I think it is worthwhile to be able to paralyze opponents in order to outspeed them, but it still might not be enough. Let's test this out a few times just to see. So in this case, I'd actually go Thunder Wave first on the Ninetales and then Supersonic. And Confusion plus Paralysis actually means they're a little less than 50-50 to actually hit you on a given turn, which allows us to get through with a lot more health right there. Still, we've got to avoid the fire-type attacks if we're actually going to get this to go, and it's not like Supersonic is guaranteed to hit. Still, we do manage to get through to the Arcanine on green health. It goes Takedown as we paralyze it with Thunder Wave, and before we can land Supersonic, it hits a Fire Blast and we lose, but this is looking a little more reasonable. A few attempts later, we're once again back to the Arcanine on green health. It once again goes Takedown turn 1, Takedown turn 2. Now we do get it confused. It's fully paralyzed this turn. We go for the Thunderbolt, and it looks like Thunderbolt might be a 4-hit KO, but he just lands the Flamethrower, so we lose yet again. And it's moments like these where I really wish that the move Light Screen was a TM in Gen 1. Unfortunately, you can get Reflect as a TM, but not Light Screen. That would solve a lot of our problems right here. On attempt number 16, we're finally back to Arcanine again. He hits himself in confusion once here, but we just can't avoid that Flamethrower. Fire Blast, of course, has the chance to miss. Flamethrower should basically always hit, and it's just an issue of getting here but not having any way to really get through it outside of him using Takedown and Reflect multiple times, or hitting himself multiple times in confusion, or getting really good paralysis luck. We're also never going to be faster than these Pokemon without the Thunder Wave, so this unfortunately is basically the best strategy that we've got. We get another attempt where he goes Reflect this time instead, but it's still the same thing when we can't land this Supersonic. So I'm going to drop a couple more rare candies here in order to get to level 38, and let's just see if that makes any difference on this fight. Otherwise, we'll go back and try Rival 5 again. Unfortunately, that fight just doesn't seem to go even at this level, so let's go back and take on the Rival instead. So back to Rival 5 at level 38. We're now at the same level as this Sandslash. We are still going to go for the Confusion here and then go into Hidden Power Steel in order to hopefully whittle this one down. We get through the first Pokemon with no damage. Thunderbolt on the Cloyster does very nice work. Now let's paralyze the Magneton and confuse it. So it hits itself in confusion, and now I'm just going to spam Thunderbolt. We get a nice crit there, and within a couple more hits, we will knock this one out. So that was perfectly good. Now Hidden Power Steel on the Kadabra gets the 2-hitter still, but we're on green health as we go to the final Flareon. I'm going to paralyze it anyway because it's going to want to go Fire Spin here. I then misclick to use the Thunder Wave again, which was a massive mistake, allowing it to knock me out. But let's just try this one more time. This time we managed to get the Flareon fully paralyzed, but it looks like Thunderbolt is a 3-hit KO, but it stays paralyzed, so we finally managed to get through, coming in at level 38, getting the level 39 in that fight. It's not pretty. It's still pretty darn close to get through that, but we did manage to get the victory. And with that, we're ready to go take on Jesse and James and Giovanni. Let's just see how these fights actually work. Starting with Jesse and James, of course, they've got the Wheezing that we can just Thunderbolt. It's not quite a one-hitter. I'll just Hidden Power Steal it down. The Arbok is a one-hitter though, and that means the Meowth also stood no chance as we get to level 40 in that fight. Now, interestingly, level 40 is where you would be at this point in the game with a medium slow level up Pokemon. So normally a medium fast level Pokemon is 3 levels lower here at this point in the game, but we have made it to Giovanni. This one could be tough. He's got some fighting type moves with that Nidorino and Nidoqueen. We're just going to have to see how this actually works out. First up, Nidorino, I'm just going to go Thunderbolt. We get the 1-hitter there. That's perfectly fine. Now on Persian, we can go Thunderbolt as well, and we're going to go Hidden Power Steel on the Rhyhorn because we don't have anything better. We did get growled once, so this turns out to be a 3-hit KO. That brings out the Nidoqueen, which is going double kick and doing some pretty good damage here. I think we have to confuse this Pokemon, and we just can't land any Supersonics, so we lose. This makes it pretty clear that when we get to Giovanni's gym, we're going to need a better strategy than this. And I'm really hoping that we're going to be able to deal enough damage when we get there. This time we get a Tail Whip from that Rhyhorn as well, and we can see that it looks like this is going to be like a 4-hit KO from the Hidden Power Steel. So we're definitely going to need the confusion, get a nice crit, and that does allow us to get through on the second attempt as we get to level 41. So with that, we have managed to clear out Silphco. We can go and take on Sabrina now before we have to go back to Blaine. And I'm hopeful that maybe with a few extra levels, that Blaine fight will start to look reasonable, but we're going to have to come up with a strategy for actually getting through Giovanni in his gym. I think Mimic strats are going to be the key there. So I'm going to get access to Mimic right now because I think that it's just going to be required in this one. The whole issue is just that we don't have a really broad move pool with this Magneton. So there are a lot of spots where we need to mimic a move to actually have enough coverage to get through things. I'm just not confident we're getting through the Nidos without some sort of mimic strat here. First up though, we've got Sabrina. Let's just see how she goes, even after having visions of our arrival from Gen 2. So Sabrina attempt number 1, we're just going to go Hidden Power Steel on the Abra. It's a 2-hitter, but still we get through just fine. I'm going to Thunder Wave here on the Kadabra just to reduce the amount of recovers that it can do, and we get a 2-hitter on that Pokemon as well. Now the Alakazam goes Psychic, which did massive damage with a crit. I'm going to paralyze this one and then go for Confusion, but since it's set up some defense buffs, I think maybe Thunderbolt is the play. It does hit itself in Confusion a few times though, so we get the victory on the first attempt, and now we're 18 minutes 14 seconds to get through Sabrina. We're up to 44 resets in this one. Really not looking good, but we have managed to get through at least. So let's just see if maybe now Blaney Boy is possible. So now as we come back to Blaine, we're just a little bit stronger here, but we do have 10 more points in speed. So if we could get the same number of badge boosts as we got in some of those, we might actually even legitimately outspeed the Arcanine. Still, I think it's going to come down to the Thunder Wave strats, so let's get into this and see if it works out. So back again to Blaney Boy, let's just see how this goes at this level. Flamethrower still just one-shots us. So even 4 levels lower, we're still just nowhere close to actually being able to get through if he uses fire-type moves, but he is only 1 in 4 to actually use Flamethrower here with Ninetales. The same is true with using Fire Spin on the Rapidash, so there's at least a chance of getting through this. this, I'm going to see if I can get a run where we get to the Arcanine at least before I give up on this one. So on the 4th attempt, we do make it to Arcanine only to get Fire Blasted down. We're going to need a 50-50 shot there of it not using that move. Otherwise, I think the only strategy that could potentially work would be to change into some sort of substitute strat here. Still, we get back to Arcanine the next turn just to get wrecked again, so I'm thinking substitute is the play. Now, fortunately, from selling items, you can get enough money to actually afford to get substitute here. It's just incredibly tedious. You have to go back through all these sections that we've already been through just to pick up nuggets and carbos and things like that, all just to sell so that we can get access to this move. But the logic is pretty simple here. If we can manage to get to that Arcanine with a substitute setup, we will at least be able to survive one hit there. And that may be all that we actually need to get this one to go. So just like that, we get access to the move substitute. We're going to slap that on to our Steel Magneton. I'm actually going to forget Supersonic since it's only 55% accurate. I think that the substitute strats will enable us to get through now, but let's just test this out. So back to Koga, we're going to go for Thunder Wave on the Ninetales, then set up the substitute. And when he flamethrowers, yes, he'll break the substitute, but we can simply set up a new one because we're faster. And now it's into the Thunderbolts, which are a 3-hit KO right here. We get to level 42 as Rapidash comes out. We will paralyze this Pokemon as well and now go into the Thunderbolts. And once again, we're getting a 3-hit KO, but Takedown did not break our substitute, so we are still going to Arcanine with substitute up. He hits Fire Blast, we paralyze him, and we can still set up substitute 2 more times. So we just need him to be fully paralyzed or to use a move that doesn't break the substitute for a turn or two. I'm going to set up another substitute as he sets up Reflect. He's fully paralyzed for a turn, and with that, we finally managed to win. So the solution there is the substitute strat. It is the best way to go. Still not pretty. We're down to 84.1 for the score, and it's an hour, 34 minutes, 18 seconds to actually get through that gym. But in the end, Blaine is beatable on minimum battles, granted with a few rare candies used. But now we have to move on to Giovanni, hands down the single hardest trader in this run, because unlike Pokemon Red and Blue, Pokemon Yellow, everything except Persian is running Earthquake here. Now we have a small advantage against the first Doug trio in that Pokemon could use Dig or it could use Fissure and miss a decent percentage of the time. What we really just don't want to see is Earthquake. Then we can possibly set up Substitute and find a way through that first Pokemon. Persian will be our Pokemon to set up on after that, I think, and then we're just hoping to have enough to get through the rest of the team. Still, this is almost certainly going to be a really tough gym, so I'm not sure. We may need to go the Mimic strat in order to get it to go, but for now, this is going to be my starting strategy. So Giovanni, attempt number 1. I'm going substitute turn 1 against this Doug trio. He digs a hole. He's going to break the substitute, and we can see that Hidden Power Steel didn't even do half here. So we're just getting wrecked on the first attempt. Now, the first strategy to at least try here is the Reflect strat. Basically, Thunder Wave's not really going to do much for us in this fight anyway, so it kind of makes sense to replace this with Reflect and just see if getting the Reflect setup allows us to survive some damage and maybe get extra turns to actually knock our opponents out. So in this case, we're really hoping for him to do something like that. Use Fissure turn 1, he guard specs turn 2, that's perfect. Now he goes Fissure turn 3, we get a nice critical hit here, and now we get to knock out that first Pokemon. That's very, very nice. I'm going to take this opportunity to set up another substitute right here on the Persian. Its Slash is breaking my substitute, unfortunately, and we're all the way down to 1 HP as we get through there, and we're going to be completely wrecked by this Nidoqueen. So that strategy also clearly does not work, which brings me to my last ditch effort here, which is Mimic. I'm just going to replace the Reflect that I just learned with the Mimic, because now we actually do have a strategy. We're going to have to get really lucky on the first Doug trio, but after that, I think we can get this to go. The real thing that we need are some Fissure misses or that guard spec in order to get the chance to set up here, and then hopefully we just get the right ranges. Dig is also kind of nice in that it allows us to set everything up and then just hit him the turn that he comes back above ground. So here we do manage to get through that Pokemon. We get to the Persian, where now I'm going to use Mimic in order to learn Double Team. I will also set up the substitute, of course, here, and we're hoping that we can manage to survive. He did hit a slash, so we're on very low health here, and we get knocked out by Fury Swipes. This time we do manage to get all the Double Teams set up though, so we just have to knock out Persian here, and now we've got badge boosts as well as evasion, so we're just hoping that all of our opponent's attacks miss. We do manage to take down the Nidoqueen. Nidoking is a 3-hitter, but it manages to hit Earthquake and we go down. Next attempt, we're back here with the substitute and the Double Teams all set up, but we took a slash there unfortunately, so we're down to our last substitute here, but that's our insurance in case we do get hit. Unfortunately, we immediately get hit by a double kick that did a lot of damage, and we once again take the Earthquake. So clearly this isn't going to be a consistent strategy by any means. It's just a strategy that can work eventually in this fight. And the fact is that we're never going to outspeed here against this Dugtrio. Even if we slam all of the rare candies, it would be completely impossible. So this is really the best that Magneton can do in this spot. And of course, the biggest issue here is that there's just no way that we could ever outspeed because we couldn't paralyze these Pokemon. So the only way that we'll get through is with a lot of luck with their move choice or getting a lot of misses. We once again get back to Nidoqueen here though. He guard specs turn 1, he earthquakes and misses turn 2, allowing us to knock that Pokemon out. And because of the badge boosts, we are outspeeding here. Against the Nidoking, we get a nice hit turn 1, he misses twice, so we finally take him down and get to move on to Rhydon, where we did level up. Here we hit Hidden Power Steel, and this looks like it might be a 6-hit KO. He hits the Earthquake right there, which is not ideal, but I'm going to set up another substitute just to buy us an extra turn. Here we're hitting the Hidden Power Steel, he misses an Earthquake, and he misses one more, and that allows us to finally win. But that is terrible. An hour 46 minutes to get through there, but in the end, it comes down to the substitute with Mimic strats, and you're mimicking Double Team. That is the strategy to actually make that one go. Really, really, really not ideal, but it's really the best that you've got with this Magneton. It just does not have an answer for those ground and rock type Pokemon. Honestly, if I were doing this in Gen 2, I think rather than having Hidden Power Steel, I would really want something like Hidden Power Water or Hidden Power Ice in order to be able to get through more effectively in these situations. So we're up to 65 resets now, 2 TMs and 2 broken TMs, dropping our score all the way down to 71.5. But let's just see if we can manage to get through with something better than that, like 44 that was the final score that we had in the previous Ultra Minimum Battles Magneton run. It could turn out that this steel typing really isn't making this run better though. It might just be that the steel type completely destroys us. Still, we don't really have to deal with ground type moves until we get to the champion because, I mean, Bruno, he's not smart. He doesn't know what he's doing. So we should be able to get through, but let's find out if that's the case. First up though, we've got to take on rival number 6. And here against this rival, I think there's nothing better than to set up a substitute right away. And now we're just going to slam the Hidden Power Steels here against this Sandslash. Sure, it can go for things like Fury Attack and whatnot. We don't really care as long as it doesn't break the substitute too quickly. But we are down to about half health as we take that Pokemon down. Now we get to this Execute, where I think we just have to try to knock it out as quick as possible. It goes to set up the Solar Beam. I'm just going to set up a substitute right there. And this looks like a 4-hit KO on this Pokemon. Really not ideal. And we get Leech Seeded. Now I'm going Thunderbolt on Cloyster, which does take that one down, but we do not really have a good setup here as we go to the Magneton. And with Leech Seed, I think we're just going to get taken down too quickly to actually be able to do anything here. It breaks our substitute, and on low health, we simply get wrecked. So we're going to have to try this one again and hope that we can get some better luck here. So this time, let's just see what Thunderbolt does to Execute. It does a lot more damage. And that makes me think that Thunderbolt here is the play. It's still a 3-hitter on this Pokemon though. And with that, we could learn something like Clamp here from the Cloyster. Not sure it's going to do anything for us here when we've already got Leech Seed on, but that could be our way to actually get through the Magneton here. So I'm going to try it. I'm going to mimic Clamp here and then go for Thunderbolt to knock out that Cloyster. And let's just see what Clamp does against this Magneton. Now, the problem that we have, of course, is that we're once again leech seeded and we're simply going down too quickly here. And it doesn't look like we did that much damage. So we may need to just level up here before we can actually get through. I'm going to drop 3 rare candies to get myself to level 48. That's the next damage rounding threshold. I think that's the best we can do. We could get up to level 51 here, but at that point we would have only 1 rare candy left from Victory Road for the league, or I guess we can also get the one from the power plant. So 2 more rare candies after this. So let's see the range now. At this level, we're definitely 2-hit KOing the Execute. We still get leech seeded, but we managed to get through right there, and we can get Clamp right here. Now I'm going to just take down the Cloyster nice and easy. Let's see what Clamp does against this Magneton. Obviously, Leech Seed is kind of counterproductive to using this strategy here. And we can see Leech Seed affects us even through the substitute. So we're basically just not getting through in that situation. We have to get no Leech Seed from that Execute, which really means it needs to use Solar Beam against us. If we can manage that level of luck, we should be good to go. This time we get a Leech Seed miss, so that's exactly what we wanted to see. As we now pick up our Clamp, we can simply destroy this Cloyster, and now we're back to Clamp on this Magneton. We just hope to hit a bunch of times to just take it down without really taking any damage whatsoever. Sure enough, we do manage to get through. Now it's Hidden Power Steel the whole way on this Kadabra. It goes Psychic, but it really doesn't matter in the end. We level up to level 49 right here, and we are faster than the Flareon. I'm going Clamp in order to just get its HP down nice and low, and then Thunderbolt ends it. So at level 48, 49, we were able to get it to go, but it's all about getting through without that Leech Seed from that Execute. Like I said, your best bet there is either to get the miss from something like Leech Seed or Stun Spore, and then the next best chance is for you to get a Solar Beam, in which case at that level, even on 0 DVs, you're going to be 2-hit KOing there against that Pokemon. Still, we can see that this is incredibly close, and we only have a few rare candies left in the bag. Like I said earlier, we'll get 1 more here in Victory Road and 1 more from the power plant. We got to go to the power plant with this Pokemon. I mean, how are you going to power your magnets if you don't go to the power plant? But after that, we're just going to have to hope that we can manage to get through. The good news is that we will be able to at least level up once per trainer here. So if we somehow do need to go for badge boost by, for example, mimicking something, we will at least have that possibility in this section. Now, I expect Lorelei to be really easy here since we basically resist everything that she can throw at us. Bruno could actually be hard if he just happens to use Earthquake or Dig with his Onix, so we're going to have to use some substitute strats there. And we have to keep in mind, he has fighting type moves on most of his Pokemon other than Hitmonchan, so there's at least the possibility of legitimately getting KO'd there. Agatha might not be as bad as she usually is. Lance is going to be a mixed bag. Since his Dragonite does know the move Fire Blast, that could actually be a bit of a problem for us. But other than that, we actually have pretty clear strategies against everything, I think, until we get to the champion. And then the champion is just going to lead off with that Sand Slash, and if we don't outspeed there, it's basically game over because he's only going to use Earthquake, and outside of a Gen 1 miss, he's probably going to 1-hit KO us. And it does make me kind of wonder how it would be if this were like Gen 3 and there were abilities, and if they had actually given Levitate as an ability to Magneton. It's a Pokemon that I always felt like should have had Levitate. It just made too much sense. Like, it's literally, I believe in the Pokedex, listed as a Pokemon that uses magnetism to levitate off of the ground. Not in this version, apparently, but I think in other versions, there's something that's stated like that in the Pokedex entry. So it actually would make sense to have a levitating Magneton, but who knows, maybe we'll have to deal with that in a future run. For now, though, we have made it to the league. It's time to see if GSC Pokemon Challenges has skills that RBY doesn't to go ahead and get through this gauntlet that is Pokemon Yellow. First up, we've got Lorelei. So Lorelei, attempt number 1, she leads off with the Dugong. I'm just going Thunderbolt here. It's not quite a one-hitter, but it is a two-hitter, and she just uses a super potion. That brings out Cloyster, which gets completely destroyed. Slowbro really never stood a chance. It's an easy two-hitter. We get to level 50 as Jinx comes out. It uses Ice Punch, but we go Hidden Power Steel, just destroying it. And now Lapras, this appears to be a two-hit KO. It did use Hydro Pump, but we survive easily and knock that one out on the first attempt. So Lorelei, joke, no problem whatsoever. Now we have to take on Bruno though, and I'm actually more scared of this fight than I was of the last one. Let's see how this goes. So Bruno, attempt number 1. I'm going to set up the substitute right here. And now I'm going to go for the Hidden Power Steel. He hits a Rock Slide, which does like nothing, of course. And Slam. Good job, Bruno. Clearly not using the right strats. So we knock that Pokemon out nice and easy. We're going to go for the Thunderbolt on Hitmonchan, getting an easy one-hit KO. Hitmonlee is out next and goes double team. Good job, Bruno. We just destroy him in a single hit. Back to the Hidden Power Steel here for the Onix, but it does go for Earthquake. Now we've got a substitute. He Earthquakes again a second time. We need to get him to stop using Earthquake here. And now we're going Hidden Power Steel, but he did use an X Defend. That's actually really good strategy. And now when he Earthquakes again, we're gonna knock him out, but man, we're on low HP. I'm gonna set up the substitute here since we're only really worried about the submission from this Machamp, but I don't want to risk it. Now I'm going to go for Thunderbolt. We do over half. He Karate Chops, breaking our substitute, but Thunderbolt knocks him out. So with 3 HP remaining, we did beat Bruno on the first attempt. He says, how could he lose? You know, and then he tries to like play it off like he just did his job. I wasn't actually supposed to win against you. Clearly there's some copium going on here. But with that, we have made it to Agatha. Let's see if we can get through the scariest trainer in this section. But I think because of our resistances, this is actually going to be pretty easy. Let's find out. So Agatha attempt number 1. This Gengar actually doesn't have any good moves against us. So we can simply substitute here and then just start spamming, I guess, Thunderbolt, just in case she swaps. Here we break her substitute even a couple times. So she will go into super potions at this point, but I think we can keep her down on health pretty easily. Sure enough, we do. And that brings out the Golbat as we get to level 52. It misses Toxic and we simply knock it out. Now we've got Haunter in front of us, and this Pokemon does know Hypnosis. So I'm going to steal that move. I'm not going to waste too much time with it here. I'm just going to Thunderbolt, or even let's see what Hidden Power Steel does. Good enough. And now Arbok is faster and is using Wrap strats. It breaks our substitute as well. That's actually a lot of work being put in by this Arbok, but I'm going to set up a new substitute as it paralyzes me. Still, I knock that Pokemon out. That brings us to the final Gengar. It goes Psychic, but didn't do that much damage. And then it tries to go Dream Eater, Psychic again, which does break our substitute, but I'm going to go for the Hidden Power Steel here. It looks like a 3-hitter, and we do in fact manage to get it. In spite of getting confused there, we get to level 53 and beat Agatha on the first attempt. So definitely being resistant to Psychic helped a little bit there. It also helped that we weren't really even having to worry about any of the moves on the first Gengar. Once we set up the substitute, they can't confuse you or anything like that. So yeah, we're using OP broken TMs, but we are managing to get 2 Lance on minimum battles. Let's see how this one goes. So Lance attempt number 1. Obviously on the first Gyarados, we just need to go for the Thunderbolt. It's an easy KO on that Pokemon. Now I'm going to substitute here against the Dragonair and go for Hidden Power Steel at this point. It's Thunderbolts, but obviously that doesn't do much. Hyper Beam also isn't really anything to worry about, as we simply knock that Pokemon out. Now I'm going to mimic the Ice Beam, but Bubble Beam does massive damage. So while we do get to knock out that Dragonair, we're on very low health going to the Aerodactyl. It flies up in the sky and Fly knocks us out because we were just on such low HP. This comes down to the fact that we got hit by Hydro Pump from that first Gyarados, and we're just not quite as fast as it is. This might be a spot to go for the rare candies to outspeed here. Here at level 56, we are going to in fact outspeed against that first Gyarados. and that should give us a chance here. Now we go Thunderbolt and just get the easy one-hit KO. First Dragonair comes out, we substitute, it goes Hyper Beam, and when it fails to break the substitute, it won't be able to move the next turn. If it does break the substitute, then we have issues. So here we do knock that Pokemon out. We're going to now once again mimic the Ice Beam. And now we're going to try to substitute right here and then Ice Beam this one down. Unfortunately, it broke our substitute again and we just can't get through in that situation. It turns out no matter what we do, this is going to be a 3-hitter on the first Dragonair though. So I'm just going to knock it out this time, now go for substitute. And we got through without getting any paralysis, which is really the main key here. Now we can knock this Pokemon out and we have a substitute up as we go to Aerodactyl. On this Pokemon, we can simply go for the Thunderbolt to knock it out, and we've made it to the final Dragonite. It's faster though, and it hits the Fire Blast. So once again, we need to go to Dragonite with a substitute still set up. So it might be best to actually let Aerodactyl break our substitute, set up a new one, and then knock that Pokemon out from there. Let's try this one again. And it's definitely the case where Thunderbolt is just the best play against this first Dragonair. Once again, we managed to get through, so we'll set up the substitute as we start getting hit by the Bubble Beams from this Dragonair. As long as substitute's still up, we'll just knock that one out. And now against Aerodactyl, I'm going to actually try to set up substitute again when it breaks it. Let's hope we don't get any sort of crazy critical hit here. Unfortunately, it once again breaks our substitute, but we actually get a setup again here. Fly does not break our substitute, so we're able to get through. And now Dragonite hits the Fire Blast, but we hit the Ice Beam, and that is enough to allow us to get through at level 57. So we're still on minimum battles. We haven't used Double Team outside of like mimicking Double Team against Giovanni. That's it. Thunderbolt, Mimic, Substitute, and Hidden Power Steel is our moveset as we go into the champion fight. We have 2 rare candies in the bag. We may need them. I'm not going to use them initially though, because there could be situations where depending on where we level up, it actually affects the ranges on this one. So we'll just kind of have to see here. But for now, I'm going to go with my moveset and everything as it is. Let's just get into this fight and see if we can get it to work. Now, the main issue here is that we know that the only thing this Sandslash is going to do is go for the Earthquake. And Hidden Power Steel does only that much, so we're simply getting wrecked right there. There's literally nothing that we can do. Because even if we set up Substitute, we're still just going to have it broken the exact same turn. And ultimately, this is the issue with Magneton. If this were Pokemon Red and Blue and he were leading off with the Pidgeot, we would just easily get through at this point, no issues. But when we have to come in here and try to use substitute strats against this Sandslash that knows Earthquake, there's just no chance to set up anything to try to get through, and you end up just getting completely destroyed. So anything like this that has a 4x weakness to ground type will never be able to beat the game on minimum battles unless you have a move that also one-hit KOs against that Sandslash. So the one thing that I will try at least is Reflect, just to see if it buys us an extra turn. I'm gonna forget Hidden Power Steel here to do it because I think we just end up copying Earthquake here if we are able to do so. So with the Reflect, Earthquake is still a one-hit KO. So that move is simply not doing anything for us. And with that, we have no choice, because if we're not going Double Team, we're just going to have to grind more levels to actually get this to go. So after dropping all the rare candies and grinding up to level 66, I have now made it back to good old champion, and I'm just interested to see if I can actually survive even a turn here. We're just gonna have to see. I'm also gonna slam some PP ups into some of my moves here just to make sure that I have as much PP as possible, and let's just see if we can manage to get this to go at this level. Now, the optional battles weren't counting correctly here. I took about 9 optional battles to get to this point. We were always sweeping through Lorelei's team with no issues. It took a couple attempts on Bruno to get through, and then we beat Agatha the first time that we got back to her, and we just beat Lance. So I believe it's about 9 optional battles. I'll go back and check the footage just to see if I made a mistake there. But now it's time to go back and just see if we can manage to get this to go. Otherwise, we're going to have to go back to the start of the league and start grinding all over again. So of course, the main question here is just how much damage do we do to the Sandslash? We do like a quarter and it still one-shots us with the Earthquake. And honestly, I'm not sure if we're ever going to reach a point where it doesn't just one-hit KO us here. But we've got to at least get it into a range where we can actually knock it out with something. And we honestly don't have that many options in our moveset. So I'm just going to go back and take on the league again and keep leveling up so we can finally get this one to go. So now back to the champion at level 69. Let's see if the nicest level is enough to get through. Otherwise, again, we're going to be back to the grind. So champion, another attempt. I'm just going to see what the damage range looks like here with Hidden Power Steel. And we still just don't even manage to survive a hit. It still looks like a 4-hitter here. So we're just not getting through at this level either. And I mean, what is there that we could possibly use instead of this? Like, sure, we could go flash or double team strats, but outside of that, every move that we learn is weaker than our Hidden Power Steel is. Like, Double Edge isn't going to do much for us here. We couldn't get it anyway on minimum battles. Takedown would be worse. Hyper Beam would cause us to have to recharge, and we're definitely not one-hitting there. So there's really just nothing else to do. And this is the real issue with the Steel type in Pokemon Yellow, at least, is that by the time you got to the champion, you would always just be in bad shape. If Earthquake can hit you, you're just getting wrecked. You've just added a really deadly type weakness there. So yeah, we're just going to be grinding our way through the league until who knows what level to actually manage to survive even one Earthquake. Like I said, it could be a situation where even at level 100, we're not actually surviving here. Now back at level 72, and it's going to be more of the same. The only question is, do we somehow survive with Reflect at this point? So I'm going to learn Reflect over Thunderbolt because I think I can manage to mimic something good enough to get through the rest of the team. Let's see if this is enough or not. So here I'll set up Reflect. We get hit by the Earthquake and we do in fact survive, which would allow us to set up a substitute, but of course we're just going to get knocked out very soon after that. The issue with the Reflect is that it doesn't allow us to survive enough turns here. So while I do think Reflect strats are eventually going to work here, we're going to have to get to a higher level than this. So we finally managed to get through the Sandslash at level 83, but once again, we're going to need a good range here on this Alakazam. It goes Kinesis, which does allow me to mimic and use Recover. I'm going to go Hidden Power Steel to just knock that one out now. Stick with Hidden Power Steel here on Exeggutor as well. We know this Magneton can basically do nothing to us, which is why I'm going to heal right here and then go into my Thunderbolts. It does manage to Thunder Wave, which did decent damage, but because we're at a much higher level, we shouldn't take that much damage from this Pokemon. The real issue is that I didn't recover PP before this fight, so we're out of Thunderbolts here. That brings us to Cloyster, and we're paralyzed, so Clamp just does a lot of damage, and we cannot move here. So we're going to have to hope for misses so that we can recover, and we just don't get that level of luck. Unfortunately, it just still didn't really seem to work at that level, so once again, we're back to the start of the league. So now back at level 86, let's see if it finally works now. Here, Hidden Power Steel is nearly doing half to the Sandslash. It's not quite a 2-hitter. Still requires a critical hit, but we should be able to get through as long as we just get that one crit here, I think. So this time I'm going to mimic Hypnosis from the Exeggutor when I finally get here. It's just going for things like Barrage against me, which do basically no damage, but really we want to be able to Hypnosis the remaining Pokemon here. Once this one goes to sleep, we can 2-hit KO that one. We managed to Hypnosis on the Magneton. The problem is just that Hidden Power Steel is doing basically no damage here, and we're running very low on PP. So with that, I think we've lost this one, but granted, I didn't recover PP coming in, so that may have been the issue. It's clear though that it's better not to go Reflect and just to hope to get the critical hit here. You'd rather have Thunderbolt still available. So back to Exeggutor again, we once again mimic Hypnosis there. Now on the Magneton, we'll put it to sleep, but we have some Thunderbolt PP still. So we're going to use Thunderbolt to finish that Pokemon off. Hypnosis misses on the Cloyster, so we lose. Back to Executor again a couple attempts later. We do once again put this one to sleep and knock it out. That brings us back to Magneton. We get it to sleep. We're going Thunderbolt. This is a 2-hit KO with that move. Cloyster, I think we can just Thunderbolt in one shot. Sure enough, we do. Now Flareon. If we don't put it to sleep, it's just going to go Flamethrower or Fire Spin. We missed the sleep, so we simply go down. The whole point here is that once we get the critical hit in order to actually get through that Sand Slash, we're always going to be on low health. So it's just a question of whether it's better to heal up or better to use the Hypnosis strat. And I just think the Hypnosis strat is overall going to lead to better results. Just because, honestly, with Recover, we're just not going to be able to do enough, I don't think, in order to actually get through here. But when we get paralyzed, it's basically game over on this one. So this time we get Magneton to sleep without getting paralyzed. We are going to get a knock it out again. So without paralysis, we outspeed Cloyster in one shot. That brings us back to Flareon. This time we do manage to land Hypnosis. We go Thunderbolt and we get the one-hitter. It turns out maybe I didn't even need the Hypnosis there at this level. But seriously, it's still luck-based there. You're still going for the critical hit on the first Sand Slash to get through at level 86, 87 here. That was rough. So as the champion complains about how unfair this was, it took 3 hours, 4 minutes, and 34 seconds, and we end up with a score of 48.1. Over 100 resets, over 40 optional battles, 10 TMs. Actually, I don't think the 10 TMs is right. Something went wonky there. That was with me testing the Reflect. So I think we can knock those off. Really, we only had 2 TMs, so that's going to add 8 points back to our score. But in the end, we can see just how massive of a gap that was between Giovanni and the champion. And honestly, like, everything up through Koga wasn't really that bad, but after Koga, it started to get really, really tough with Rival 5, Blaine, and Giovanni, and the splits absolutely reflect that. So now I think it's pretty obvious why RBY Pokemon Challenges told GSC Pokemon Challenges to do this run. He didn't want to waste 3 hours of his time trying to run a Steel-type Magneton. But I'm going to be very interested to see how this one actually performs if we come back and do this in Pokemon Red and Blue. Because we were on minimum battles all the way to the champion. It really wasn't that bad for a minimum battles run. And it makes me think that in Pokemon Red and Blue, where the only ground-type move user that we have to actually worry about is Giovanni's Dugtrio. That's it. All of his other Pokemon don't know any ground-type moves. This might turn into just a completely trivial, easy run. It's going to be very interesting to test that one out, but for now, we've done it in Pokemon Yellow, and man, oh man, that was tough at the end. And I think it reveals that the Steel type, as cool as it sounds, really wasn't going to be that good if it were introduced in Gen 1. At least not in Pokemon Yellow. Anyway, the rival, he's going to say, why did I lose? And clearly, he made tons of mistakes here, but he didn't make any mistakes with that Sand Slash. That Sand Slash was legit. Everything else, though, I think was a little sus considering that we had his Steel-type Pokemon. I think he should have rethought his team, and we're going to go ahead and register this one into the Hall of Fame. And with that, I think there is only one last thing to do. I want to see how this Pokemon performs against a Mewtwo, but we're going to make it a very special Mewtwo here at the end. Something that's running some moves from Gen 2 would be pretty interesting to see. So as we come into this Mewtwo fight, we're going to see it has a very special moveset. It knows Fire Blast, Submission, Bubble Beam, and Barrier. Basically, Fire Blast should do a lot of damage and probably one-shot us. Submission will be super effective but have some recoil. Bubble Beam's neutrally effective, and Barrier will protect it against our Hidden Power Steel. So what I think we need to do is when we get hit by Submission, we're going to set up this substitute here, and now I'm going to go into some Thunderbolt, hoping that I can deal decent damage. We get the paralysis, and just like that, we actually win on the first attempt. Thanks to the paralysis, Mewtwo never stood a chance against our Steel Mag. But in the end, that was not a pretty run. That was really, really painful. I'm going to come back for some redemption, though, and I'm going to, just take RBY Pokemon Challenges' wife out on a date, go hold his baby for a minute, all the things to show a little bit of disrespect for the fact that he made me do this run for 3 hours. Anyway, I appreciate you guys. I hope you enjoyed this one. Go clown on RBY Pokemon Challenges that he's not going to get his Magneton card back today. That is certainly sure. But with that, check out a even better Pokemon channel. Check out GSC Pokemon Challenges. I'm going to just spam it in the link down below because RBY isn't here today. And with that, I hope that you watch another video. Thanks to the channel members, many of whom are also on my channel. And I will see you in the next one. Later.